20 years ago. To this day, I still can't fully wrap my head around it. Back then, I was a college student living a completely aimless life. No goals, no dreams, just drifting through the days in a haze of laziness. My only real entertainment was driving around with two friends, Kenji and Satoshi, who were just as bored as I was. Eventually, even that got old. Then, one of us suggested a new hobby, Haido. In Japan, this is a dedicated hobby where people track down old, forgotten mountain passes reclaimed by nature. We weren't looking to hike through the brush. We wanted to stay in the car. We looked for old sections of highways that had been bypassed by new tunnels, or narrow side roads that seemed to lead to nowhere. We used Kenji's Suzuki Jimny, a small 4x4, to scout them out. Strangely, for three guys who usually quit everything, we loved it. There was something about the eerie, surreal atmosphere of those forgotten places that resonated with our own empty lives. One afternoon around 2 p.m., Kenji showed up with a grin. I found a great spot. Let's go right now. The place was only about 30 minutes from the university, tucked away in the mountains. We turned off a busy main road onto a diagonal, narrow path. Immediately, it was clear no one had been here in years. Weeds were punching through the asphalt. Branches and rocks littered the way. We wondered how we'd missed this turn before, but after just 100 yards, the road simply ended. A dead end. Is that it? Satoshi asked, disappointed, but Kenji just pointed. Along the road was a concrete retaining wall meant to stop landslides. In one section, the wall broke, and the gap was covered with a heavy wire mesh fence. If you squinted, you could see the road continuing on the other side. We can get in, Kenji said confidently. He'd brought wire cutters. He snipped the ties, we pulled the mesh back, and drove the Jimny onto the restricted ground. We didn't feel guilty. We figured we'd just tie the fence back up on our way out. Besides, I assumed we wouldn't get far. If the open part of the road was overgrown, surely this closed section would be blocked by fallen trees within minutes. But it was the opposite. The road actually looked cleaner than the one we had just left. For 5 minutes, we wound our way deeper into the forest on a narrow, twisting mountain pass. Then, we saw the tunnel. Well, tunnel is a strong word. It looked more like a brick-arched aqueduct. It was short, maybe 5 yards long, and just wide enough for the Jimny. We drove through. As soon as we cleared the arch, the road began to deteriorate. Gravel sprayed under the tires. Suddenly, Satoshi screamed, "Hey, stop! Look back!" He was pointing at the exit of the tunnel we'd just passed. Standing directly over the opening, pressed so tightly against the brickwork that you couldn't see them from the other side, were torii gates. The iconic red or stone gates found at the entrance of Shinto shrines. By driving out of that tunnel, we had unknowingly passed through them. A cold shiver went down my spine. We hesitated, debating whether to turn back, but curiosity is a powerful drug. We decided to keep going until the road became impassable. Another 500 yards in, the scene changed again. The asphalt ended abruptly, as if cut by a ruler, turning into bare earth. But it was what stood at that border that stopped our hearts. On either side of the road, exactly where the pavement ended, stood 2 small stone Hokora altars. They looked like sentinels marking a boundary. By now, fear was mixing with the adrenaline of discovery. The thought of turning back vanished. The dirt road ahead was strangely smooth, not a single fallen branch or rock. Only later did I realize how wrong that was. There were no tire tracks, yet for a closed zone, it looked perfectly maintained. Suddenly, the trees vanished. We broke out into a vast, open plain. Fields stretched out as far as the eye could see on both sides. They looked like rice paddies, but there was no sign of anyone farming them. The sky was a blinding, brilliant blue without a single cloud. It was so beautiful it took my breath away. Then, reality hit. Where were we? How could a space this massive exist so close to the city and remain unnoticed? I wondered if it was an abandoned village, but there wasn't a house in sight. Where does this road go? I whispered. Just then, a dark shape appeared in the distance. As we got closer, it grew into a massive building with a thatched roof. This wasn't an old farmhouse. It was gargantuan. It was the size of a high school gymnasium, maybe larger. Why build something so colossal at the end of a dead-end road? The road led straight to the front doors and stopped. There were no other buildings, no side paths. It felt as if the entire road had been built for the sole purpose of reaching this house. We got out of the car. Strangely, a sense of peace washed over me. The air was crystal clear. The silence was absolute. No birds, no wind. The temperature was perfect, like the first day of spring. For a moment, I felt like I wanted to stay there forever. But looking at that massive, black building snapped me out of it. Despite its age, the house wasn't decaying. The wood was dark but solid. The thatched roof was in perfect condition. Is someone living here? Let's look inside, I suggested. Kenji agreed, but Satoshi was hesitant. He said he'd rather just walk around the outside. The front doors were heavy but unlocked. As we pushed them open, the smell of old wood and mold hit us. Is anyone here? I shouted. Silence. We stepped inside. The interior was dim, lit only by the light leaking through the cracks in the open door. It was a giant, empty hall with a wooden floor. Empty shelves lined the walls. To our left was a fusuma, a sliding door, leading deeper into the house. The ceiling was lost in deep shadow. It felt like the room went all the way up to the roof. I steeled myself. Excuse me? Is anyone home? I called out again as I slid the inner door open. I flinched. The next room was unexpectedly bright, likely from skylights high above. But it wasn't the light that terrified me. It was the wrongness of the space. The room was huge, another gymnasium-sized hall. Spaced out evenly across the floor were 5 incredibly thick pillars reaching for the ceiling. These weren't beams. They were entire tree trunks, nearly 10 feet in diameter and 30 feet high. Holy crap! Do trees even grow that big in Japan? Kenji whispered. As we stood there, wondering what this place was, Kenji let out a sharp ah! I looked at the central pillar. It was plastered with a fuda, talismans or charms made of paper or wood, covered in ritual calligraphy, used to ward off evil or seal away spirits. They were pinned to the wood with strange iron spikes that looked like oversized thorns. The ink on the paper was dark, forming characters that looked like kanji but were completely unreadable. There's something under the paper, Kenji noticed. We walked closer and looked up. In that second, my stomach dropped. Nailed to the pillars were human ears. Hundreds, maybe thousands of them. The ones near the bottom were shriveled and black, like rotten fruit. But the higher they went, the fresher they looked. Near the top, the ears looked recent. Oh God, run! Get out! We bolted. We sprinted through the main hall and burst out into the sunlight. I didn't know what that place was, but I knew we had to leave now. Where's Satoshi? He had gone around the back. We ran around the side of the massive structure, gasping for air. We found him. He was standing perfectly still, staring into the distance. Then we saw what he was looking at. Behind the house, there was nothing but a flat, infinite plain. And on that plain, arranged in perfect rows stretching to the horizon, were thousands of simple wooden stands. On each stand, 2 or 3 candles were burning. The flames were steady and bright. They went on forever until they vanished into a distant haze. What is this? What is this place? Run! To the car! Satoshi seemed to wake up from a trance at our screams. He scrambled toward us, shaking violently. Hey! Where's the sun? I looked up. The sky was clear, brilliant blue. But there was no sun. No source of light. The sky itself was just glowing. A flat, uniform light coming from everywhere and nowhere. I knew something was wrong. Satoshi was sobbing now. It's too quiet. No birds, no bugs. There wasn't even a single blade of grass on the road. We threw him into the chimney. As we peeled away, I glanced at the house. The front doors were shut tight. I know Kenji and I had left them wide open when we ran out. But I didn't stop to check. Kenji pushed that chimney harder than it had ever gone. We flew back down the dirt road, past the altars, through the tunnel with the gates, and finally reached the wire fence. By the time we hit the main highway, the sun was actually setting in the west. Only then did it feel like we were back in our world. Nothing paranormal has happened to us since. No curses, no ghosts. But we remember every single detail of that day. Later, I drove past that turnoff again. The narrow path is now blocked by a heavy, permanent steel gate. There is no way in anymore. Not that it matters. You couldn't pay me enough to go back.